What's going on, guys? I'm Andrew,
I'm Jason.
and this is Movie Source.
Today we're going to be ranking all the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So as Jason just mentioned, we are going to be ranking all the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, and that starts with Iron Man 1 that came out in 2008. We're only doing from there on to now leading up to Captain America Civil War. So we're going to be ranking 1 through 13, or rather 13 up to 1. So number 13, for me, I got Thor: The Dark World.
I also have Thor: The Dark World at 13.
Now, Thor: The Dark World, I'm not a very big fan of this film. The first time I saw this film, I actually thought it was decent. I thought it was okay. The more I've seen this film around 10 times, and just each time I watch it, I like it a lot less. Each time I watch it, I love the Loki scenes in the film. I still enjoy Chris Hemsworth as Thor. I really didn't like that we were missing one of the characters from the as Lady Sif and the Warriors 3. We were missing the Asian character from the Warriors 3. I didn't like him not being absent in the film. I really didn't care for the villain in this film. They had no development whatsoever with Malekith, and he's just completely a forgettable villain for me.
Yeah, the villain was probably the worst part about the movie. I mean, I feel like there's a little too much love story going on between Thor and Jane. I like this movie. I think it's funny enough. I mean, I really like all the Loki scenes and seeing Thor and Loki's relationship evolve. That's probably my favorite part of this movie,
Yeah.
But even though I do like this movie, it probably is my least favorite of all the Marvel films.
And I would just say, if Loki was not in this film, I'd probably hate it even more. So Loki saves this film, if anything, for me.
All right, at number 12, we've got Iron Man 2. And I think you also have Iron Man 2 at your number 12 spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I think this movie's fine. I don't think it's one of the best of the Marvel movies. Again, it's lacking a really good villain. I thought Mickey Rourke's character is pretty cool, but apparently I heard they cut out a bunch of his scenes, and they totally just, they had some good development going, but then they just kind of cut it off. And I like Justin Hammer as a villain, too. They kind of are dual villains, but overall, I think it's one of the weaker Marvel stories.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's, as you just said, it's my number 12 film as well. I still enjoy this film, but I do recognize it's nowhere near Iron Man 1 or some of the other MCU films that we've gotten so far. But I think, like you said, the villain, Whiplash, he just doesn't do it for me. I like some of the stuff earlier on in the film where he's trying to make God bleed, make Tony bleed, and then he goes into the trope of I want to kill the main hero, even though we went into our Iron Man 2 review, but I just didn't personally care for this villain other than the beginning scenes like him in the prison cell with Tony. And obviously this film, I still like some of the Avengers setup stuff, but I felt like some of the time they veered away from the plot, focusing on Tony and setting up some more Avengers stuff, which I didn't mind. I like that stuff, but I still want to focus on Tony at the current task at hand. So that was my opinion.
I did like how they went into the story of Tony dying and him trying to cope with
that.
Palladium. Yeah, exactly. And he figures out how to kind of get that away from him, and he builds another arc reactor, which I thought was cool, and a little bit more backstory with Howard Stark. It plays into Tony Stark's relationship with his father. Those are some of the good parts about the movie, and I do enjoy this film, just not one of my favorites.
And really, last thing too, and also in Iron Man 2, something that really makes me appreciate Iron Man 2, we'll obviously get to it in the rankings, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, we find out Gary Shandling's character, Senator Stern, who was in Iron Man 2, when he's coming after Iron Man's suit in the film, when you see it right in 2010, you're thinking, oh, the government just wants Tony Stark's suit. Later in Winter Soldier, we find out that particular senator was working for Hydra. So again, I love that expansion of coming back to that film. No, that wasn't the government after Iron Man suit. That was Hydra. I really like that, and it makes me appreciate this film a little bit more after watching Winter Soldier. So I like that a lot. Moving now on to number 11. I really enjoyed most all these films, so you're going to hear me say that a lot. But this is obviously still on a little bit of the weaker side. Iron Man 3.
I have Iron Man 3 at my number 11 as well.
And this film is directed by Shane Black. It's the first time that Shane Black and Robert Downey Jr. have reunited, and I would even say this is the untitled sequel to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. But again, I enjoyed this film. I think my favorite part about this film was obviously seeing how Tony has responded to the PTSD from the events of the Battle of New York. I love seeing what this character is dealing with after such a crazy event like that. On top of that, I thought they did a great job of expanding Rhodey and Tony Stark's relationship, their friendship and their bond. I loved all their scenes together, the way they worked together, especially in the boatyard at the end. It had that Lethal Weapon feeling to me of just, the buddy cop working together, and I love their chemistry even more so than Terrence Howard and Robert Downey Jr. together. They're a lot more playful, and they feel a lot more organic. Even though I still love Terrence Howard, I really love the relationship between Don Cheadle's character of Rhodes and Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. I enjoyed the film, but still, it's number 11 for me.
Yeah, I like this movie too. I really enjoy seeing that this is much more of a Tony Stark movie than just Iron Man. It's sort of like Dark Knight Rises in that way, where that's more of a Bruce Wayne film than a Batman film. But it's really cool seeing, like you said, he has a lot of PTSD from the events of New York, and he's coping with all this, and he's having panic attacks, and he kind of has to refine himself and realize who Tony Stark is, not just Iron Man. So that's really what I enjoyed about this movie, and number 11 on my list. At number 10, I have The Incredible Hulk, and I believe you have the Hulk there as well, too.
What I have, too.
I do enjoy this movie. I really like Edward Norton. I'm not sure who I like more, Edward Norton or...
I like them both a lot.
Yeah, I really like both, but I did like Edward Norton in this movie. It was cool seeing Hulk's backstory. One thing that I was not sure why they never mentioned again was when he's talking to Mr. Blue on the computer, he's talking back and forth, it's Samuel Stern, and when he's turning Blonsky into Abomination, he breaks out of it and he gets some of that serum on his forehead, on his brain, and you see him kind of pulsating. So I was wondering if they're ever going to bring him back, and they haven't done it.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I did some research into that a few weeks back, and they actually, in the comics or in the mentions of in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they said that they do have Dr. Stern's. I believe they said he's either in he was in a shield. They pulled him into a shield base, but obviously we saw in Winter Soldier, shield was pulled apart. So I don't know if he got transferred to another prison. He's still locked up in a prison somewhere. I really hope, maybe in Phase 4, because I really am under the belief that the Fantastic Four will be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Phase 4. I think that'd be a perfect time to introduce the leader, because they clearly, Marvel, we've talked about this so many times, we're going to keep talking about it because they do such a great job. When they plant seeds, they're going to come back to it, and they foreshadow and do such a great job of this, and they're not going to forget about the leader. Trust me, we're going to come back. And also, too, Abomination, he was also...
I really liked Abomination.
Yeah, and they were actually in the conversation at the end of the film with Tony Stark telling Ross, we're putting a team together. At first, Ross wanted the Abomination for some weird reason to be part of the Avengers, and then when Tony Stark said, this is more stuff you gotta watch, that's off screen, not during the scene, but apparently Tony Stark does not want, none of them want Emil Blonsky on the Avengers, they want Banner, and then that's where Ross, Thunderbolt Ross, does not want to work with the Avengers, and then he comes back into the fold in Civil War. But getting back to The Incredible Hulk, came out in 2008. I thought Louis Leterrier, the director, did a phenomenal job. There's an alternate opening of this film that I really wish they would have done. And also they mentioned it in Avengers where Mark Ruffalo's character had said, I tried putting a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out. So I moved on. There's the alternate opening of this film, which I've seen a few times. I wish they would have kept, and you actually get to see Captain America frozen in the scene. You got to look carefully, but I've seen he's for sure in the scene. You see Bruce Banner like really at his lowest and his most he's at his most vulnerable point right now, and he just doesn't want to live anymore. And he's about to shoot himself, and the Hulk like emerges and like causes a global glacier or an ice glacier, and then you see the Captain America thing. I really wish they would have gone with that opening, because again, throughout the movie you could feel how haunted Bruce Banner was, but I just wish they would have started with that. But overall, I enjoyed this film. A lot of great action. It's still a good Marvel Cinematic Universe film that I feel gets shuffled to the side and people forget about it.
It kind of gets forgotten. I enjoy this movie too.
Now moving on to our number 9, I got Thor. This film came out in 2011. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh. Now, I gotta say, biggest drawing for me, yet Chris Hemsworth is phenomenal as Thor. Anthony Hopkins, phenomenal as King Odin. Tom Hiddleston for me as Loki is where I like
Totally.
that. I think the scene where I really got sucked into just how amazing of a performance he was when he's telling Odin, "Tell me."
Yeah.
That's one of the most. I think it's one of the most brilliantly. I think he's the best actor in the Marvel Cinematic. He gives the best performances out of any actor in all the MCU.
It's a pretty bold statement, but I think I might agree with you.
Yeah, no, but just for me personally, I'd say Robert Downey's a very close number 2. But just in general, I got sucked. I mean, the story is really cool. I love seeing Thor's, not his origin, but just how he has to come to Earth, learn a lesson because he's so cocky and he's so full of wanting to go to war all the time. I love the lesson he had to learn in this film. Also, I like the introduction of Jane with that, even though I know a lot of people have complained about that relationship. In the first movie, I thought it was a lot more organic and a lot better than in the second movie. It felt a little more forced to me there, but I like their relationship in this particular film. I bought that their attraction towards one another. I thought the comedic banter and timing in this film was pretty spot on, especially that one scene in the pet shop with "I need a horse." I love that scene. Just overall, I love the action in this film. It's a good MCU inclusion, and I thought it did a really good job of introducing the God of Thunder into getting him ready to join the Avengers.
Yeah, I have Thor at number 9 too on my list. I like how this movie was very fantastical. It's a little bit different than some of the other films that are set on Earth, where this is set in Asgard. So it's very different style. I know this movie is set on Earth too, but like seeing Asgard was really cool.
Oh yeah,
the whole frost giant battle. And like you said, Loki is one of my favorite characters in all of Marvel. Tom Hiddleston, amazing actor, really good portrayal of him. And like you said, yeah, this movie was very funny too. Like when he's sitting with Jane in the shop, he's like, "I like this drink. I want more.
Another.
Well, you don't have to do that." I thought that was funny. Thor, I think, is a pretty funny character.
And we get our first introduction to Hawkeye. We get that little cameo of him being about to shoot Thor. And
that was cool. Nice little intro. All right, so here's where our lists are going to differ from each other a little bit. They're still pretty close, but we have a little difference of opinion. At number 8, I have Ant-Man.
And at number 7, I have Ant-Man.
So, Ant-Man, I really, really, really do like this movie. Really funny. I love the introduction of Scott Lang and Hank Pym. I thought they made this movie very funny while still keeping the feel of a Marvel movie. I thought the action was pretty good. The villain was okay, not the greatest, but I mean, it didn't really hurt. It didn't really harper the movie too much. I mean, it could have been better, but I still like this movie a lot.
Yeah, no, this movie could have fallen apart because if you remember, Edgar Wright was supposed to direct this film, and then Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and a few other films came in mind, and then when he wanted to come back and direct the film, it was so different than what Marvel had originally thought, and they said, no, this is going too far away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they broke apart, which I wanted to really see. And you can see a few of Edgar Wright's stuff in this film. The montage of, I believe, Scott Lang's friend Louise, Michael Pena's character, you see him talking over everyone's
I love that scene.
That is clearly an Edgar Wright trope right there.
Yeah.
That is not Peyton. And the director of this film, Peyton Reed, he came into a tough situation having to, hey, you got to make a good Marvel movie, and Edgar Wright just left. He did a phenomenal job of infusing the action, infusing the comedy, and I love the feel of this movie. It's a heist film. I really enjoy this. The villain could have been a lot better, and when we do our Ant-Man review at some point, I'm going to mention how I just do not buy how the villain knows how to use his suit right away on first try. Yellow Jacket we're talking about, so that was a very big issue I had. But overall, I really love this film. I love the introduction of Scott Lang. Again, this character who you see, he's a good man. He tried to help people in a tough situation, and he paid the price for it. So I really identify with this character, and I loved the introduction to Ant-Man as well as Scott Lang, and it was just a great film for me. Now, my number 8, I have Avengers Age of Ultron.
And I have Age of Ultron actually at number 7.
Now look, a lot of people have bashed Avengers Age of Ultron. I recently watched it. I'll definitely admit it's not as good as the first Avengers film, but that doesn't make it not a good film. I still enjoyed it. Yes, it's a little clunky. There's a lot of things going on. I get it. I do get the criticisms. My biggest criticism of this film is I just would have liked Ultron to develop at the beginning a little more. I just thought it happened too quick and too fast with him, destroying Jarvis, and then now he's already in a body. He's got his humor. I just would have liked, and again, I know there's so much going on in this film, but the film is called Age of Ultron. I would have liked a little more development. And to me, the trailers for this film, it painted Ultron as this menacing villain that's going to be impossible for them to beat. I felt when they beat Ultron, because we saw him shift bodies at 3 or 4 different times, I just felt it was too easy for the group. Maybe it's the trailer's fault, but what I had been seeing in the trailers, I thought something way crazier, more evil. And the film also is called Age of Ultron, more like a week of Ultron. So, but still, I enjoyed the film. It's a good film of the team. I'd say my favorite scene by far is the scene of them trying to lift Thor's hammer. I wish more stuff of that kind of those character building moments. I would have liked a lot more of that, but I did like the introduction of Quicksilver and also of Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff. I love the introduction of that. I still enjoy this movie overall. It's still a great film, but it's not as good as the first Avengers film, and that's why I have.
Yeah, it's not as good as the first Avengers film, but I still really do like it a lot. It feels very much like a team up movie, which some of the standalone movies are just singular characters, even though there's a few characters within. But I really like the team up aspect. Like you said, the scene where they're all trying to lift the hammer. It shows all the relationships have built a little bit. It's funny seeing their banter between it. Ultron, overall, I really did like his character, and I love James Spader's performance of him. I thought it was a really good casting choice. It did seem a little bit, not that it was easy to beat him, but they were able to foil him, in one go, not in multiple tries. Like, and I love the scene where they go to Wakanda and they're fighting in that ship, and you see Claw. He cuts off his hand. That's going to play in later on to Black Panther. And I also liked how they sort of portrayed Hawkeye a little more like his character. I thought in the first Avengers film, even though Hawkeye was under Loki's control for most of it, Hawkeye has an attitude, almost like Tony Stark a little bit. He didn't really have that in that movie, where in this movie, he kind of does have more of that attitude.
And he's funny a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's supposed to be funny, cracking a lot of jokes, being really sarcastic. That's who Hawkeye is, and I thought this movie did a much better job of portraying him than the first Avengers film.
All right, so at number 6, and this film has actually moved up my list. I've watched it recently, and this film is brilliant to me. Captain America, the First Avenger.
And I actually have that movie at number 5 on my list.
Yeah, now this film came out in August of 2011. It was directed by Joe Johnston. We actually did a review on it recently. You can check it out here. I thought they just did. First of all, the CGI of Chris Evans as the smaller Steve, it gets me every time.
It looks real.
Yeah, I love the introduction of this character. We learn right away in that alley scene, like all about this character, his principles, how much he loves his country, how he doesn't like bullies, and how he can do this all day long. You know, when he's in a fight. So when he's fighting for something he believes in, he'll do it all day long. And also too, the scene where he jumps over the grenade and you see like the guts of this character. I just thought they did a really good job of making you really buy into, and also too, the way they showed Captain America in the Golden Age back in World War II. I thought it was a great homage, and I thought Joe Johnston did such a great job. And also too, the writers of Winter Soldier and Civil War, and now also Avengers: Infinity War Part 1 and 2, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. Thought they did such an amazing job with the script. I mean, all the scripts, they just really understand the character of Captain America. And I love the growth of this character from seeing him as small to seeing him as big. And also, one last thing I loved in this movie, he didn't change. Before he got the Super Soldier Serum, he was a good man. After he got the Super Soldier Serum, he was still a good man. I thought they did a great job in this film. Yeah,
I love this movie. It has such a different feel than a lot of the other movies, because all of the other movies are set in present day, where this is set in times of World War II, so it's a completely different age. Great origin story for Captain America. Like you said, I love seeing him go from really tiny and seeing, he's really small to be, being huge after he gets the serum injected into him. But I love Red Skull, the villain.
Oh, yeah.
Hugo Weaving was amazing. Yes. I loved his dynamic with Arnim Zola, too. Oh, yeah. I thought he was a funny character and was good. I like seeing Bucky in this movie a lot, too, seeing his origin. I just, love seeing Cap and Bucky working together, and with his Howling Commandos, too. I thought this movie was really fun, and it just has a different feel than most of the other Marvel movies, so I have it at number 5. So my number 6 is actually Guardians of the Galaxy.
And that is actually my number 4.
When I first saw this movie, I loved it. I could not say enough about it. The more times I saw it, I still like it, but it went down just a little bit for me. I love the humor in this movie, but some of the jokes just go a little bit stale for me sometimes. I still like it a lot, but it never really hit that from that first time. So that's why it's slowly moved down my list slowly but surely. I used to have it above Captain America. I used to have it above... No, I never had it above Iron Man, but I still really do enjoy this movie. Again, another movie that's just way different than any of the other movies. I love the music in this film and how the music ties into the whole story. I really, really do love this movie. So
no, yeah, definitely. This film came out in 2014. It was directed by James Gunn, August 2014. Obviously, it's got one of the greatest soundtracks in movie history. But what I love about this film, and I call it the Space Avengers. But what I love about this movie, you've got a bunch of criminals working together, and for the good of human, or for the good of the galaxy. It really worked on so many levels, and I thought too they made so many fun of so many tropes. Like one scene in particular when they're all standing up and Rocket's like, "There, all right, we're all standing up, like a bunch of jackasses." Because that happens in so many movies. You hear a pump up speech, they all stand like, I wonder what happened after that. The camera like pan. Now we see just a lot of fun moments like that. The comedic timing, the banter, the relationships between the characters sucked me in the most. I love the way the five characters work together. From Star-Lord played by Chris Pratt, to Zoe Saldana's character Gamora. I am Groot. Like, the character says 3 lines, and like to be that emotionally invested. And then Bradley Cooper as Rocket Raccoon, phenomenal.
Yeah, he was a great choice.
He was amazing. Also, too, I didn't really hear his voice much when I just heard more of Rocket Raccoon.
I could tell. I could hear
Well,
it.
whatever. I guess I was just so much sucked into the film. Also, we got Dave Bautista as Drax. Now, I'd heard when they cast him, the only exposure I had got to him on film or TV was Smallville, and he was atrocious as one of the villains in Smallville. Acting-wise, I didn't care for him. But in this, I thought, I mean, give him credit. Also give James Gunn credit for directing him so well. I really bought all of Drax scenes. I wasn't in any of the scenes like, this is a wrestler doing a terrible performance. I bought
He
all
was funny.
Yeah, and how literal he was.
So I guess that's over your head. No, it's not. I would catch it.
I'm not crazy about Ronan. I still do like.
Nah, he's bad.
I disagree, but he's okay. But I thought Lee Pace gave a good portrayal. I just thought they could have done a little better job with the character. I don't think he's bad. Like
Lee Pace was good, but just the writers or the screenwriters, I don't know. Just
all right. That's
I never really thought he had a chance, and he basically let them win at the end by just trying to be a badass villain.
But
I don't know.
Yeah, either way, I still love this film. I love the action adventure aspects of it. I love the Star Wars homages. It's the Space Avengers. And again, the biggest thing I love on top of the great storytelling, I love the characters and how well they work together. And even though they don't see eye to eye, they're common criminals. They just care about themselves. They just want to get rich and money.
Credits.
Yeah. I love when they ultimately come together and they work together. And then at the end, when we got the "Ain't No Mountain High," and that song, like, I'm all set. I can't wait for the next film, for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm on board with this crew. All right, so number 5, I've got the film that without this film, there'd be no Marvel Cinematic Universe if this film failed. I got Iron Man 1.
And I have Iron Man at my number 4.
Now, as we just said, this is the first MCU film that came out in 2008. Had this film not done well, there's no MCU. And I just love right away. It's a very simple story. It's a good origin tale of Tony Stark. I mean, him going in the cave and then having to build the arc reactor, really changing his life, seeing what his weapons have done to people. I mean, people are dying in other countries because of his weapons. And I love the character arc. I'm turning that around. I'm going to destroy my weapons and make sure they don't get manufactured. Great film. I actually really enjoyed the villain, Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges. I love their relationship, and also they showed at the beginning how many years they've known each other. So I thought they did a great job just like of showing how complicated the relationship was, and also showing how much he resents and hates Tony, and just great job. Also, I thought they did a good job of infusing Gwyneth Paltrow in the film as Pepper Potts. And I did like Terrence Howard in it. He gives a more serious take of Rhodey than Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle's a lot more jokier and friendly.
Oh, sarcastic.
Yeah, definitely. And Terrence Howard, much more serious as Rhodes, which I don't mind. I did like it. I always get laugh every time I hear the line, "Next time, baby," with the worms. I'm like, not for you.
Nope.
So I love this movie. And Jon Favreau had a tough task at hand, and he took a risk going with Robert Downey Jr. because Robert Downey was not the star he is right now. He hadn't
done any movies for like a few years.
Yeah, there was the drug stuff, and just he'd had a lot of personal problems, and he brought Robert Downey Jr. back in this role, and I love this movie. It's one of the best MCU films ever.
All right, so for my number 3, I have Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
And Captain America: The Winter Soldier is my number 2.
I really, really do love this movie. This movie was so dark, a completely different tone than most of these other movies had. The action is just incredible. I'd never seen a movie with this good of action, for the most part. And I love the dark portrayal of Captain America. It's like a very 1970s spy thriller movie, you know what I mean? I really enjoy the dark themes and tones of this movie, and, the action. It's just amazing.
Yeah. No, for sure. As I just said, it's my number 2 film. When I had heard that the Russo brothers, the directors of Community and the directors of You, Me, and Dupree, and also they had done Arrested Development, I'm like, okay, they know comedy, but can they do a Marvel Cinematic Universe film? Within 5 minutes, the On Your Left between Sam Wilson, and then on the boat when he kicked the first guy over the boat, I was like, these are the right directors for this film. They know how to direct an action sequence, and they know the character of Capo. And like you said, I love the dark tones in this film, that 70s political action thriller, and also too, I love how they've infused Captain America into the real world, showing how he adapts. He's been frozen for over 70 years, showing him adapt to this world. So, and also too, the way I'll put it on the list, and internet, so helpful. I thought they did a great job infusing Cap into our world. And also too, like you said, the different tones about with Arnim Zola spying using the algorithm. It's real world stuff. It's scary stuff. And I love seeing Cap. He's on our side and he's fighting for us. And the action in this film is
so good.
The Tahoe scene with Nick Fury, the scene on the boat, the 3 helicarrier scenes, the scene on the elevator, the hand-to-hand combat between Bucky and Steve. one of the greatest action films I'd ever seen in my life. And again, the story and the characters are so phenomenal that they emotionally pull you into the action, and you care so much about what's going on in those action scenes rather than dismissing it as, oh, cool action scene, but I don't give a crap about any of these characters. So just a very good job of, like I said, really making you care for the characters. And I just thought they elevated and expanded the character of Captain America. Like, he became my favorite superhero. I mean, again, I loved him in the first Avenger. I truly did. He went on another level for me in this film, and just, I love this movie so much.
And I love that Hydra is still the theme, and Hydra is really the main villain of Captain America in this movie. And can't say enough. I love the Winter Soldier. Yeah. He is badass, especially when he first shows up, when he's trying to take down Nick Fury. He just shows up, catches Cap's shield. So many iconic moments in this movie, too.
No, definitely. And also, one last thing I want to say about this film, like most Marvel films, did a phenomenal job of planting seeds and foreshadowing. The scene I'm obviously mentioning, really quick spoiler alert, is obviously where they're at the base with Arnim Zola at the old base from the first Avengers, where Steve learned where he was with the army. We find out that Natasha says S.H.I.E.L.D. would have stopped you if Hydra had invaded us. And he said, accidents will happen. Then they showed a picture of the Winter Soldier, and then they showed Howard Stark, and then they showed Nick Fury. So I love how right then they were showing and setting up, hey, the Winter Soldier killed Tony Stark's parents, and that's going to be a big infusion and theme in our next film. So I thought this film not only did a great job of focusing on the story of Steve Rogers, but planting seeds for later films while still focusing on the main plot. So I love this movie. I'm a sucker to watch it every time. And I'm not going to lie, too, on the amazing action sequences we just talked about. Every time I got to rewind those scenes a couple times just because they're so incredible.
All right, so at my number 2, I have The Avengers.
And that's my number 3.
I love this movie. It really was the culmination of all the first 5 movies of Phase 1. First time seeing all these heroes on one screen. It was so big, so epic. A lot of funny moments, especially like when Tony and Captain America meet for the first time, and when Thor comes in and he's having, fighting the Hulk.
Shakespeare in the Park? Does mother know you wear her drapes?
That sick fight scene between Tony and Thor, and then Cap comes in and breaks them up. So many great scenes. Plus, I loved having Loki as the main villain in this movie. Mm-hmm. Loki's one of my favorite Marvel characters. Love this movie.
Oh no, this movie is phenomenal. It came out in 2012. It was directed by Joss Whedon. Like you said, it's the culmination of everything we had seen in Phase 1. And this movie could have fallen apart. You got all the Avengers working together in one film. How is everyone going to get enough of their screen time? Joss Whedon, he really understands these characters. He gave everyone their due time while still, without having to get away from the plot and not focus on all these characters. It didn't happen that way. I love the team, the bond. First of all, what I love about this film, they don't see eye to eye at the beginning. There's a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting. Like you mentioned, the Thor fight versus Iron Man. Great fight scene. I love how Loki is trying to pull the event. I mean, even though they're not really a team, but he knows that that's the only group that can stop me on this earth, from taking over and ruling with the Chitauri. So I love Loki's plan, trying to rip the Avengers apart there, and then them coming together. And obviously we got Agent Phil Coulson's death, which brings the Avengers together. Such an emotional lump in your throat, but it's such a great moment in the film when it brings the Avengers together. And I gotta say, that shot, that wraparound shot, seeing all of them,
and the music too.
Yeah, the Alan Silvestri's score, phenomenal. But seeing the shot pan around,
so epic.
I remember I saw the film 5 times in theaters. All 5 times the crowd erupted when that pan around shot. It's such an iconic shot, and I love the line immediately after by Loki, "Send the rest." And then you see the Leviathan come, and then you see them all, and then Cap just takes control of the team.
No. Then Iron Man is the one who says, "Call it, Cap." That's him basically, letting everyone know. Obviously, Captain America is the main leader, the tactical leader.
He's the strategic tactical leader.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
love that moment.
Yeah, no, and again, the humor in the film is phenomenal. We talked about Tony, and also when he calls Hawkeye, he's like, "Can you give me a ride?" "Sure, better clench up, Legolas." So many great moments, and also too, I love when Cap says, "And Hulk, smash." Some iconic, great, fan-drooling, amazing moments in the story.
And they held Hulk off from that movie for so long. He was Bruce Banner the whole time, and then at the very end, he's like, That's my secret.
Yeah.
I'm always angry.
I
and
also,
then Hulk
yeah,
was
I also
awesome.
thought it was funny how so many people complained, how did a Bruce Banner know where to go in New York? Right before Hawkeye fires the bomb that hits the helicarrier, and then Hulk falls down and turns into the Hulk on the helicarrier, he's looking at the location. It says Stark Tower, so he knew that the battle would be there because he's trying to find the location of Loki. It was not Loki's scepter, but the Tesseract. And it says on the screen right before the explosion, and he goes, oh my God. It says Stark Tower on there. So I'd always wondered how he knew that. Now we know. So that was a funny complaint. But overall, such an amazing culmination of the whole group coming together. And this, like I said, this movie could have fallen apart, but Joss Whedon just did an amazing job writing and directing this film. And it's one of my favorite MCU films. It's my number 3. Now, number 1, this was not easy to pick, but you always got to pick a number 1 in a list. So for me, it's Captain America Civil War.
Same with me. Number 1, Cap 3. I know it's fresh in our brains, but this movie was just beyond epic. As good as I could have imagined and more.
Yeah, no, what I loved about this film is it kept pulling you on both sides. Obviously, you had to make a decision on who you agree with, but the problem was you kept on agreeing with both sides, even though you were with one, you were in total agreement on one side. Also, to the dramatic turns this film took, the action is some of the best action I've ever seen in film history. I've never seen action like that.
And one of the best singular action scenes I've ever seen, the airport.
No,
so good.
No doubt. But just this film, just like I said, took so many dramatic turns. One moment, you're fanboying out like, oh my God, this is amazing. Another moment, you've got a lump in your throat. You're feeling so much emotional pull. Another moment, you're seeing your favorite Avengers fight each other. And while it's great and cool to see, again, you're feeling sad because you don't want to see them hurting each other. You care so much about these characters. You're so emotionally invested. And the screenwriting by Marcus and McFeely and the direction by the Russo brothers, top notch. These guys know exactly what they're doing. I can't wait to see what they do with the Infinity War films.
And as good as the action is in this movie, I think this movie is really carried by its characters. You know, the characters and the story and the main plot. The villain is, while he's kind of in the background, his plan is just brilliant.
Great villain.
Totally pits all the Avengers against themselves. Some epic fight scenes, really good dialogue between the characters too, which I thought was my favorite part. Seeing, while they're on different sides, seeing how they still talk. They are obviously still friends, but they're on different sides of this big issue. So, really good movie, really good writing.
And we also
was great.
And we also got the introduction of 2 new characters, Black Panther and Spider-Man, and they did such an amazing job. Again, there's so much going on in this film. Again, we skipped the origin story because we all know the origin story of Spider-Man. They just did such a great job of getting this kid to have a Queen's accent, really sound like Spider-Man, having that kid, be betraying himself like a kid. I love that.
He's a fan of all these heroes, and now he's fighting alongside and against them.
And T'Challa, just the way his character arc, just seeing how he wouldn't let vengeance consume his action in the film, his Wakanda accent, the portrayal by Chadwick Boseman. He could be my new favorite Marvel character. He's
up there for me.
It's so hard to pick. There's so many amazing characters.
And there's so many good lines said by everyone in this movie. Captain America has great lines. Zemo has great lines. Tony Stark has great lines.
Giant Man.
Yes, and I love seeing Giant Man in the fight. And I really did love how each character got their due time in the fight scenes and outside the fight scenes. Everyone had their moment in this movie. Multiple moments even.
Yeah. No, you nailed it perfectly. And last thing I just want to say, not only did everyone get their due time, but I love that the film still focused. It was still a Captain America film. Even if the main focus was over Bucky and over the Sokovia Accords, it's still at its main core was a Captain America film. And that's what I love. And
this movie's strength was definitely its character development. Because this is obviously the 13th most recent movie in Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's already been so much, character development built up in all these other movies, but this movie just took it to another level. There's so many good relationships in this movie that they are on full display. All right, guys. Well, that's our list, the ranking of the Marvel Cinematic films. You can see both of our lists on the side here. We would really love to hear your rankings and whether you agree or disagree with us. So definitely let us know in the comments section. We really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like these videos, you can hit the subscribe button.
See you guys next time.